All right, starting up a live session here. Impromptu, as most of them are these days. Okay, this lesson is going to be on scene lighting. And let's see, looking for the video right now on my own computer. All right, let's see. Hello, Carrie. How are you? Thanks for stopping in here. You're the first person. All right. I'm going to be doing some scene lighting I don't know, examples here. A lot of people ask me about scene lighting. Hello, Diana. But yeah, a lot of people ask me about scene lighting. That's one of the biggest questions I've had over the years on creating scenes. A lot of people get, they get the compositional types of image blending down. They get the coloring down just fine, and dye-based inks, pastels, colored pencils, etc. But some people still have the question of, how and where do you create scene lighting? Hello, Jeannie. And I thought I would get into that. I'm teaching some classes this weekend, and Stampscapes 2 is largely about the lighting aspect of things, where Stampscapes 1 is mostly about, just the compositional build, the foundation of a scene, okay? So hello, Sandy. Hello, Jason. So let's just get into it right here. I'm just going to do some really kind of basic, foundational, fundamental types of approaches to scene lighting, okay? And these are just the ways that I approach it too. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, okay? And I do it in a very, very simplistic manner most of the time, okay? And scene lighting is also going to be, it's going to change a little bit. I mean, it's going to be different if I'm working on a full page scene and a quarter page, because there's not a whole lot of kind of options we can do on a smaller format, and it gets really extreme if we're working on like a 2x2 inch type of thing. But we can still do scene lighting when it comes to any type of size of format that we happen to be working on here, okay? So I'm going to be doing something with these tree trunks here. The tree trunks are a nice bold image, and of course they're the types of things that if we looked in the natural world would be casting kind of, the darkest shadows potentially, because they're so big and solid of an object, okay? So anyway, someone said, me too. Is that you, Candy? You have questions on scene lighting? Or was that me too in regards to something else? Okay, so anyways, let me just get a composition stamped out really basically. I'm going to do these in just monochromatic right here for right now. That's one of those things in art school. What they always go through first is usually go through some kind of monochromatic applications of media in your first classes. So if you go into a beginning drawing class, a beginning illustration, life drawing classes. If you go into oil painting, you're not starting just monochromatic, but a lot of the basic classes are just about just focusing on value, okay? So you don't have to think about things like, color intensity, hue, color temperature, and all that. They want to keep things really kind of basic at first, okay? And this is something that I always recommend to people that they do. Now, a lot of people don't want to do this because it's like, oh my God, I'm not going to be doing monochromatic scenes. I want to be doing color. But it's just kind of a fun foundational type of structuring that really helps you out with things like color, okay? All right, so just some tree trunks in here, kind of a densely packed forest type of situation, forest floor type of thing, possibly dark in the shadows, okay? All right, let's get some grass going down in here. All right. Okay. All right. More than one way to light this scene, okay? Now, I always do, in my scenes, I can't think of a time when I've done front lighting, okay? That's as if we have a light right here, and it's shining forward into the scene. I usually have the light coming from the back. That way I can create these types of shadows and whatnot, okay? Now, you can do front lighting, okay? That's not, it's not something that you should not do, okay? So if you do front lighting on this, then we wouldn't really be able to see any shadows in here. Everything we can just color pretty much straightforward. Grass is green, tree trunks are brown, whatever you want to do, something like that, okay? All right, now, like I said, I'm just going to go with a monochromatic approach to this. But as I'm using something like gray tones or something like that, if it's in the grass area, it's the same type of approach that you can do with color, but you would just be using various values of color, light green, medium green, dark green, instead of, light gray, dark gray, medium gray, etc. Hello, Beverly. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for stopping by. All right, let's see. Let's just grab our super high-tech ink application, life-changing paper, life-changing paper towel applicators here, right? Or I don't know, whatever. I joke about people sometimes about their applicators, the types of applicators that are out there. Hello, Sophia. Good to see you. Okay, so if you've just joined in, what we're doing right here is we're doing some simplistic applications of lighting, okay? All right, so I was mentioning that I'm just doing a forest floor type of situation right here. And this is also something fundamental with compositional builds too. I'm going to add in other things in here, but for the most part, it's just a forest floor texture and our trunks in here. If this was a waterfall, I would do the waterfall scene in there, maybe a couple of rocks on the outside edge. We don't have to think about the entire process at this point in time, okay? That's where people get stumped too, if they haven't done scenic stamping before and they see, something like this stamped right here. Now, I did add the foregrounds in here on the last live broadcast, just because so people can see kind of a general composition from start to finish, including your foreground imagery, okay? But I'm usually starting like this. It's just a really, kind of foundation right here, okay? So, all right, so scenic lighting, okay? So if this scene is going to be backlit, okay, I'm going to cast my shadows from these tree trunks. Now, I'll show you directional lighting in a scene right after this one. But just in general, if this is a forest right here and there's an opening in the back, like maybe an open meadow or something like that. What I start doing is these would be the dark sides of the trees, right? Because you have the lighting coming from the other side. So I would start toning these in. And like I said, if we're working with colors and you're doing brown trunks here and green grass, you would just start working in your tans and medium tone browns on these trees instead of just black, okay? If it was in the grass, then you would start applying your lighter tones and whatnot. Now I am just applying black in here, okay? But I'm not using it as 100% black. I'm not going like that, okay? I'm using more of like that tone of gray right there, okay? So it's like a light version of whatever color I'm using, okay? So you go on your solid objects right here. If it was rocks in a waterfall, or if it was, something like this and it's backlit back here, you can start adding a little bit of tone on your rocks, okay? If it were, I don't know, Roman columns or something like this, and the lighting was over here, then I would start toning in the, the right side of this column or something like that. The opposite side of the lighting is where you want to start creating your shadows, okay? All right, so here we're kind of creating this darker kind of scenario with our solid objects, okay? And this is one of the things too. A lot of people color their objects, but they're not thinking of the cast shadows, okay? So this is the darker area of the tree. right here, okay? But what we're also doing is at the base of these objects now, I'm creating a shadow being cast by those objects. So always do it in a light tone and build up into your darker tones, okay? But you can see already right now, these objects are starting to cast light, which gives them mass and it gives them opacity. If I don't do any shading being cast by those objects, what happens is it looks like the objects are kind of floating as opposed to really being anchored into the scene and are opaque. You know, they're blocking out light, okay? And it could be simple too, if you just have like a little character or something like that down on your scene, you know, a little horse or something like that. I wouldn't put the horse in here, it'd be like a tiny miniature one or something like that. But it can just be like a little type of thing like this at the bottom of the horse, okay? It can be something like this, okay? It's like that horse is casting a shadow now, okay? See right there? See cast shadow thing. So what you're saying is that these objects aren't ghosts or something like that, okay? All right, so just building up and building in. Now naturally this tone, you know, this applicator here, a paper towel is not the ideal for getting into all of these areas right here. We can hit that with, you know, something more precise. Here's this alcohol pen, like so. All right. But can you see the lighting starting to develop right now? And I mean, we haven't done too much here, okay? All right. But here's the thing though, too. When you're doing these types of applications of shadow, start it off like that, but don't be bound by kind of the natural convention, okay? You can make things up too, okay? So I'm just kind of anchoring things down. So this is kind of referencing a backlit type of application here. But again, think about these. I say these in my videos a lot, is don't look at your scenes so much as like a photograph of the natural world, you know, and how light actually casts. You can reference it like this, okay? I'm casting some shadows and whatnot. But the scenes are also more like your own world, okay? You can, it's like a stage, and you're the set director by setting all of your props up, you're setting your whatever, your situation, scenario, okay? But you're also the lighting director, okay? So in a scene like this, what I'm doing is I'm creating this lit area down here. Now, if this was in the natural world, these trees would be casting their shadows in here. It'd just be completely dark down here, and you can do that if you want to. But if you're a lighting director on a stage, you can have as many kind of spotlights as you want. You can have multiple ones. You can have it coming from the left and right. You can have different colored lights. It's whatever you want your viewer to look at. So what I like to do is I like to create a scenario where there's kind of a spotlit area down there. Yeah, this is a glossy paper, Carrie, but you can do this on any type of paper, and you can. This is a good point here too. You can do this with. This isn't a dye-based ink lighting lesson or something like that. This is for anything that you want to utilize in your piece. It could be colored pencils, chalks, or whatever, okay? All right, but did you see this lit area down here? That would be an example of like stage lighting or something like that, because if I want to put something down here, an object, a horseback rider, a deer, or something like this, you want to have it in the light so that you're focusing your viewer's attention, again, where you want it to go. All right, now here's one of the simple things that I do on most of my scenes. It could be very apparent or it could be very subtle, okay? Is I'd like to do this kind of vignette type of scenario with my lighting. I go darker in the four corners, okay? Now if I have a sun or something like that, you know, or a moonlight, you know, area that's right smack dab in the corner. I'm not going to block off all the light in that area, okay? So I might do the other 3/4, but for the most part, I do this vignette right here. It doesn't have to be black. I mean, you certainly could do that, but see this right here? This is the thing that a lot of people do on their cards, okay? They might not think of it as a vignette, okay? But, you know, they have a little birthday cake or something like that, or, you know, some, whatever it is, an area, and they could have something stamped out in the middle, but oftentimes what they do is they take, you know, and sponge off the corners, and that's all I'm doing here. They're doing that kind of more for framing, but it is lighting, because in any situation that we're doing on you know, a white piece of paper, if you're depicting something that's lighter, you're not doing it with light, really. You're doing it with shade, okay? So this is what I like to do. And in my videos here, this is a really easy lighting scenario, okay? And this will work. You can do this on 98% of your scenes and, you know, totally get away with it every time. I'd probably do it on 80% or 90% of my scenes right here. But what you do is you have your paper like this, and whatever, you know, situation like this, here's some trees in here, you know, whatever, like this, okay. Could be a lake down here, whatever. But I have an area of light up here and an area of light down below, and it's just separated by some area of darkness in here, and it could be tone that you've added in, or it could be objects, or it could be both, okay? So this can change right from up here. Sometimes your area of light up top is very small, and your area of illumination might be bigger down below. This area of light could, you know, change from one side or the other. And, you know, that light source and reflected light scenario, again, you can do it on just about every scene. Sometimes your scene is just, you know, it's all lit in the middle and it's dark around the edge. You know, there's not two areas of light, but do you see this going on right here? Here's an area of light like this, blocked off with tone like that, and an area of light down below. And it's, you know, nothing more than that. I'll do some directional lighting so you can see shadow directions after this, but let's add in a couple other things here. And this lit scenario right here will be done. And again, I really recommend people kind of play around with monochromatics, because it really gets you to see lighting so much more, I don't know. I think, I don't know if the word's profoundly or something like that, but it's just so much more apparent when you're developing this type of scenario, because again, you're not having to think about, you know, 3 layers of green or something like that, or warm greens and cool greens and browns on the trees like that. Now, like I said, yeah, I mean, I do that, but I don't have to think about it when I'm only doing monochromatics. Plus, it really gets you to control the amount of lighting that you're adding to a piece. You're just so much more aware of it that way. And I'm not saying you need to do this all the time, but if you did about 3 monochromatics like this with just black and white, I'm saying this for me too, I have to do this once in a while. I don't do it all the time because people don't like, you know, monochromatic pieces. If they see a video and it's black and white, they're like, I'm not watching that at all, because I don't want to do black and white. But from a fundamental standpoint of awareness, lighting awareness, this is just so valuable for that, okay? And it really gives you command over your media too, okay? So you can get all versions of grayscale in a piece like this just from one ink. So it's getting people to see any type of ink that they have and seeing it kind of in a new light, like lighter versions of it. So this is like all versions of gray, even like a super light gray, right? This is all versions of this blue from this intensity and value of it down to nothing, okay? So it really gives you command over your whatever application of those types of things. All right, let's do something here too. Let's, you know, since I talked about kind of spotlighting an area, why do you leave an area down here that's light like that? Let's stamp some kind of subject matter down in that area. Okay, let's see. Let's just go with this one right here. Okay, a little Horseback Rider. Let's see if I've left it light enough down there. I don't want to have her head going into a super dark area right there, but let's see if I have left enough space. Okay, so let's go with it right here. I'm kind of just directing this. I'm trying to put her head in an area that's the lightest area in that area right there. Okay, so right here. I mean, it would have been a little bit better to have it a little bit lighter back there, but, you know, I don't know. This is kind of adding it in after the fact. So we're just making do right that. But again, okay, so if this area wasn't illuminated down here, we wouldn't be able to see the character as much. So again, it's like, you know, setting the stage for your subject matter there. Yeah, I do like black and white photography, Candy. I don't know. I like black and white movies too and stuff like that. I find them to be kind of like, I don't know, kind of real dreamy types of I don't know, kind of emotional settings and whatnot. But okay, I'm known for color, I think, in many ways, or I came to be known for color over the years, but I'm really more of a black and white illustrator. So my applications of color tend to be very simplistic. I don't know, it probably makes me a pretty good teacher for color because I'm really thinking not really about color when I'm doing my pieces. I'm really thinking more in terms of value, okay? I'm thinking about light and dark more than I am color, color can be broken down into hue, which color is it? Is it greens, blues, yellows, reds, whatever? Intensity, bright and dull. Then there's temperature, warm and cool. And I'm missing something. Value, light and dark, okay? But when you're talking about black and white, you're talking about value only. Now, you can do warm grays and cool grays or something like that too. But I'm talking about more of the neutral aspect of it. Sandy likes some black and white movies too, yeah. Let's do something here. Let's do something where, let's create a scenario where we have some really kind of dramatic directional shadows here. Okay, let's go with a slim line here. Let's create a scenario here where I can have more of the shadow area. So larger designs like this, you just have them going off the top of the page, right? Okay, so let's do a few of these so we can create this lighting scenario here. Okay, we'll do them at different heights. Can you save by highlighting the dark on dark? You can a little bit. I mean, I could put like some white. I often do that with white pigment ink. If I've taken something too dark, the white pigment ink, you know, kind of foggy type of effect, remedies a lot of that. So, I mean, what I would have done was I would have added some of that white pigment ink fogging in the back of the head there, okay? And then I would have stamped the image on top of that, okay? So it gives me a reasonably crisp impression. All right, let's see here. Let's think about shadows here. Let's go this one much higher, like that. Okay. And let's get in some other trees as well. But yeah, highlighting often brings things out from the distance. So that's why a lot of times I might add in, you know, little dot highlights on reeds or something like that with like a white paint pen too, because it brings it out from the background. Okay. All right. Let's see. I think this is the first time I've used this stamp right here. I have a lot of these stamps in wood-mounted form, and over the years I've typically used my wood-mounted versions of them. Just, I don't know, because I already have it, you know, in that version. But I've realized that, well, people are getting a lot of the, you know, people buy unmounted and stuff like that these days, so I should really be using some of those versions of it. These ones are the cling versions right here. Hello, Marta! Oh, this is the first time you've caught me live. Thanks so much for checking out the vid, joining in here. I hope it's a good viewing for you. I've recently started doing the voiceover styles of videos. You know, if the videos get too long, which I know they are, but a lot of it, you know, a lot of times people are doing, they follow along with the videos, and I don't like to do a sped up version of it, but I don't know. I do think about time when I'm doing those non-live videos and, you know, boring people. Okay, let's see. Let's create an actual object that's casting a light in here. Let's do a moonlit scenario here. Okay, let's see. Let's pick out a moon. These are some moons here on this. Let's go with a fairly large moon. Let's do this one right here. This one's called Hot Sun, but if you do it in blues, then, you know, if there's no craters on it or something like that, then it could be a sun or anything you want, okay? That goes for like all of these moons. One of them has, you know, the crater formations on it, but most of them don't. Okay, so with sky imagery, I usually wipe off the edges like this a little bit. I don't always do that. I'm just doing it here because it's a good thing to practice. That way the edges of these different types of objects are going to stamp out lighter, and therefore, if they have a lighter perimeter, you can blend them in with the surrounding area so much easier, okay? Jason, did you used to use wood-mounted stamps? I still use my wood. I'm not going to unmount those, but yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's the only kind of incarnation of stamp that I make mine in these days, unmounted or the cling foam mounted ones. Okay, so we have in this scene right here, our light source. Okay, now in this one right here, it's just kind of a general backlit illumination, right? Okay. Now this one right here, we have our physical light source, okay? So here's what I do. Okay, now this, I don't know, you know, I don't remember what grade I got in perspective and lighting in my classes. But it was kind of it was tough, you know. I couldn't see things exactly. I mean, I got it later on, but okay, here's what I do right here. Okay, so if you have a physical light source in your piece, go to the center of it like this, okay? And this is what I do. It's not going, this isn't exactly, you don't have to get so formalized in this, but right here at the base of your objects, okay, what you do is you create kind of a perspective scenario right here, okay? So see right here at the base of this trunk, my light shadow is going to be cast this way right here, okay? And the other side of the shadow, you know, being cast is going to be at the base of that. So it's right here, okay? And it's right here, all right? So these ones right here, that being said, the shadows are going to get much more pronounced in terms of the angles that they're casting. Okay, so you see this right here, that way, and this way right over here. So if things start moving at much more of a kind of a horizontal, and then if I had a tree right over here, it would be level, if it was level with that moon, it would be basically a horizontal, a really thin line. But here's the shadow right here. Okay, so let me just start going into it right here. Okay, so you can see. Now I don't do this, I wouldn't be taking this piece of paper. I don't physically do this. Okay, when I'm doing these pieces like that, I'm not so formalized, but that's just the general angle that you would use. Okay, so see this one right here? This one's much more vertical because it's much closer to that light source up there. If you have time, could you do something with Maple Brook? I'm just doing shadows on this one right now, but I can't do that at another time there. But I don't know. We can try to jump in. I'd have to go find it. I don't want to get up from my table in this live kind of broadcast like this. Okay, so let's do this right here. So naturally, let me just use this. I'm going to use this as a guide just so you can get the idea. But I don't want my shadows really to be so hard set, like as if, these trees were like on concrete where they would be casting like a really super crisp shadow or something like that, okay? Yeah, I'm with you, Jason, with that. The first time I ever used an acrylic block with tack and peel was, I don't know, when I used that tack and peel on the acrylic blocks with unmounted stamps, I thought, oh, okay, that's the future right there, because I know just how hard it is to get really good maple, and that was the case years ago too, okay? And it's heavy. Wood-mounted stamps are a lot more expensive, because they just cost so much more to make. I still love them, though. I think they'll never be kind of a nicer incarnation of stamp than a wood-mounted stamp, but from a practical standpoint, storage standpoint, etc., it's definitely an unmounted stamp world these days. Okay, so you see that shadow right there? Now, see, I didn't go right up to this, okay? I kind of, tapered it off right here, so it's not just a hard edge. You can go with a really hard edge, though, if you want to, it would be really super dramatic, okay? But this is supposed to be kind of grass and uneven right here. Yeah, non-mounted. I'm with you, Candy. It took me a while to kind of, I don't know, move away from the idea of it. I wouldn't say that. Like I said, when I used that tack and peel, it was like, oh my God, that is really, really convenient there. Okay, so see this as I'm moving towards this right here. I'm kind of not, going right up to it. I'm kind of tapering it off, okay? Now see this right here, to get to this other side of the shadow, I'm going to have to come in from this side, right? Okay? So we can see this kind of developing. Hopefully you can kind of see it already starting to develop a little bit, okay? Remember, it's not media specific. This isn't a dye-based, shadow type of exercise right here or something like that. Remember, on that first scene, if you just joined in, I toned my objects here that are being backlit here. Okay, but here's the thing here too. Here's a difference right here too. We have a physical area of light right here, okay? Now, on these tree trunks right here, why don't we just kind of reiterate lighting on them, okay? So here we're just doing this with some tone right here. So on this tree right here, instead of just toning in the whole tree evenly, let's tone in this one right here where the moon is to the left of it. Let's tone in the right side of this tree, okay? Why not, You don't have to, okay? But it's one of those things that just, again, it just kind of reiterates lighting in a scene, okay? So you have to kind of look at your objects and, kind of do a little bit of an evaluation. And it's one of those things, it's moving. This is where it confuses people that just haven't done scenic stamping before, okay? they're used to doing whole object coloring because their objects would be more outline based. Okay, so we're used to coloring up the whole types of objects. Okay, so if it's a tree, they're taking a brown, coloring the whole thing brown. Okay, okay, so on something like this, if lighting is involved, you just do less coloring. Okay, a lot of people think this is harder. Okay, it's just an added layer of concept here, but in reality, the application process is that you're doing less coloring, right? If you're allowing some of the image to remain lighter or untouched by that lighting. So do you see this right here? How this is being now illuminated by that moon. And I haven't added in any color in the sky yet, so I'll do that here shortly, but let's go like this. Okay, so you get the idea of the shadows right here. Let's continue on with the shadows right here, okay? Here's, this grouping of trees right here. You could have the little light coming from between that stump, that trunk there and that other part if you want to, but, like I said, you don't have to get so, strict about it, okay? Okay, now here's another thing too. Here's what I like to do. At the base of the object, I put a little bit more tone like that, and then I taper it off like this, okay? So if I put my hand like this, right at the base of the shadow, it's darker, and then as it moves away from it, it's lighter, okay? Let me see, I don't know. I have lighting coming from both sides in my studio here, so it's hard to see, but... Okay, but you see that lighting starting to develop like that? Look how cool it is, too. It really makes it really dramatic, okay? All right, let's go like this. I'm kind of hitting it more towards the shadow. I'm really not going on the edge so much. Well, I have to on this one. It's a little bit more narrow of a shadow like that. See that right there? Tapered, darker to lighter like that. So it means that when you start doing it, you add more tone, more ink, right at the base. If you're doing colored pencil, then you just add more colored pencil and wax. If you're doing pastels, then add more pastels there, or, build it up. Use the darker ones like in that area. Okay, see this one right here? Here's this tree up here. Look how angled this is. There's hardly any of a shadow at all right there on the grassy area, at least, okay? But see that right there? Okay, let's get these trees a little bit more. I'll have to use my pen coming up in here. This isn't exactly the most detailed of a applicator here. I mean, you can kind of make it a little bit more narrow like that if you want to. Okay, more ink right here at the base of the tree, tapered off in the distance like so. All right, what have people been saying? A lot of people's favorite stamps are wood, index stamps. Yeah, I'm with you. Jeannie's favorite stamps are wood. Sometimes people say to me, it's like they have removed all of their stamps, but there's been quite a few people that say, okay, I removed all my wood-mounted stamps from their wood, except for Stampscapes, because they just couldn't do it. They just love the indexing and whatnot and the look of them. Which is good to hear. The nicest incarnation of a wood-mounted stamp, they were the PSX ones by far. They did that pad printing directly on the stamp as opposed to using labels, which I had to do. But that pad printing process was really amazing. Hey, look at this. We can use, I have a mask for my tree trunks here. This is a pretty good mask here, because I can use this, for anything still, because it's just so dark right here, right? Let's see. File drawers to store, yeah. That was one of those things. That's one of those things with wood-mounted stamps, isn't it? It's storage, you know. There had to be kind of specialized um, storage, you know, considerations for wood-mounted stamps. But the wood-mounted stamps are, you know, they're crafted, you know, most of the times, as far as I know, handcrafted product. I don't know of any incarnation, even when they sent, some companies went overseas with it, you know. There's just no other way around it, you know, than to make things by hand, especially if it's the, you know, the traditional types of wood-mounted stamps. There might be some other types that, you know, maybe they have some kind of machine that can make them, but I don't know of any that can do it. All right, but do you see that that lighting on that meadow down there? And again, if you just logged in, you can be doing these same types of things here with any type of media, okay? It's just about that directional lighting. So here's kind of more of just a general kind of glow that's happening in this scene, and this one's more directional lighting right there with those shadows being cast by an object that you can see. I mean, you can do something like this too, this directional lighting in here, just with an area of light. It doesn't have to be a moon or a sun or something like that. Okay, so let's go in that vignette here. Let's go with those darker perimeters now, okay? I have a lot of open space here, so I'll have to see how I can, you know, if I can do that really well with my paper towel here. Okay. Some people have asked me, hey, what paper towel are you using there? And I just say, I don't know the brand. It's whatever the ones they have at Costco. I don't know if Costco's across the nation have carried different brands for their standard brand. Or whatever, the one that they carry, okay? So see this right here? So I'm starting really light like that. I'm kind of working an area before I move on to another area. Someone mentioned the difference between wood and acrylic, yeah. If you mean the photopolymer ones, yeah, those stamps, they don't give the same type of impression. They definitely have their place in the world of stamps, but as far as longevity, impression quality, and whatnot, it's just not the same type of thing from kind of a synthetic product to kind of a natural product of rubber. The polys tend to wick moisture just like, you know, nylon does, as opposed to cotton or that type of fiber. They tend to wick moisture, which is, you know, they puddle up on something a little bit more than, or a lot more, depending on the surface area, than rubber that has that static on there that can hold your ink. Okay, so I'm looking at this right now. Let's do a little bit of a horizon, not glow, but darkness here, okay? All right, so what I mean by that is I'm going to come in here. Here's my masking again, right? And I'm going to get this area. Remember that area, you know, when I was talking about kind of light, dark, light down here? Well, I want to do the same type of thing right here, but let's just do it in a very subtle manner, okay? So I'm masking this, get a smoother rip right here. Okay. All right. Let's go like this right here. And let's put a little bit of tone down here to separate light source from reflected light, okay? So when you do that, see how much more that stands out right there down below, okay? So that's just putting a little bit. I mean, you can build it up and put however much you want. And see how I'm bringing this tone back into this hot sun image, okay? See this right here? There's these dots around on all of my objects like this, my sources of light, okay? Because those are the things that define the negative space, which are the moons or suns or whatever you use these for, okay? So remember how I wiped off the perimeter of this? I dabbed off some of that ink. So now, see, that's really paying off for me now, because when I blend a little bit of tone into that object, instead of having to blend in a really you know, stark, dark perimeter around that moon, it just blends in really easy for me. So see how that pays off kind of, you know, later on down the line. Again, okay, so bringing in some of this grayscale. Look at this grayscale that we're able to achieve. The paper towel works better the more you use it too. So even if you use this one like this for a scene and you did a couple scenes, if it still looks like that, save it for kind of future usage if you're going to use it, you know, with the same type of ink or something like that. Let's see. Your mini stamping platform. Yeah, Marta. Those platforms are pretty nice. I don't use them, okay, but I've seen them used, and every time I see them used, I'm thinking, I don't know, that looks pretty good. You know, I think for me, it might slow me down in my process, you know, putting something there and stamping like that. But there is definitely something to be said for those platforms like that. And a lot of times what people do with the unmounted rubber like this in a MISTI is they get one of those clear stamps, I think they're called, by like Purple Onion or whatever. The Speedball gel plates, I think, or gel, I don't know, whatever they're called. I think those are the same thing as the Purple Onion. That, from what I've been told when I directed someone to that, they said, "Oh, that's just the gel, you know, thing that they're using." But they just take out that little cushion out of the MISTI and replace. And I think they put the gel on the lid or whatever the you know, that stamp, you know, the acrylic or whatever, and that holds their unmounted stamps in place. Okay, do you see how this is going right here? Now this is a big scene. This is taking me a while. This is like 2 scenes right here, right? In this half page horizontal right here. But let's go into here like this. And one of the things I'd like to do too, this is just a big open area like that. Let's get a little bit of tone in there anyways. It's supposed to be grass, not like, you know, smooth concrete. So you'd have some variations in here like so, okay? Now remember, if you're adding in this like this, if you're doing greens or something like that in here, this green grass or whatever color, you know, color scheme you're working in, remember to retain your areas of light. Now see in here, we already have these beams of light kind of coming through. You can break those up. You can have some textures, you know, from your grass going across it here and there like so. Okay. You can do this type of thing in the sky too if you want to. Let's get a little bit of variation in here, okay? Let's say that there's some, I don't know, atmosphere, clouds, whatever, variation going on there. So see that right there? There's your cloud or something like that. You can add another layer of it in the background like this, okay? This black is going a long ways. I don't remember, you know, I'd have to rewind to see how many times I've re-inked this. But look at this, you know, it just keeps going on and on like that. See that? Like there. Let's do another one over here. Here's one of those things about lighting when you're doing this paper towel type of effect like this. Okay. Let's flip it around like this. Okay. Now, these clouds or whatever atmospheric types of things above the moon are now being bottom lit, okay? I'll show you what this looks like here. Okay, so see that right there? Now that one up there is being bottom lit. See how these clouds are? It's kind of coming down like that. It looks like they're being bottom lit. These ones from the bottom are being top lit, okay? I mean, I guess you could go crazy. You can do the cloud coming from this way, so these clouds over here are being side lit too, or something like that if you want to go like that. So I never realized stamp differences till Stampscapes. Quality counts. Thank you, Candy. And I hope you meant that the Stampscapes ones are the quality ones. I'm joking. Thank you so much. But yeah, I really want to put as much time into my designs as possible. The quality of it. It took me a lot of years. I don't press my own rubber, but finding someone that sees kind of the pressing type of experience is almost like, I don't know, they have like a doctorate in rubber pressing, in terms of like being exacting. And it's an art too, because when you're pressing rubber, it's a natural product where you largely use, the same settings every time with the same batch of rubber, okay? But a lot of times, or sometimes, another batch comes in and they have to make their adjustments in terms of, what temperatures they're cooking things at. They call it vulcanizing. And also the plate that they're making that impressions from, the Bakelite, they call it, or the matrix board that they're using, that changes too in the temperatures and settings they use and whatnot. And it was all explained to me. Like I said, I don't do it, but the guy that was doing it for me was explaining all that at some point in time. And I could really see the differences. I used some different manufacturers over the years, and I had to, I don't know, I stopped using them for a couple of reasons. But when I looked for someone that really knew what they were doing, I was really happy about that. Same thing with the wood, but way back when. Okay, so do you see that right there? There's your lighting in there, okay? And again, it's pretty much the same type of thing going on right here, okay? You might not think about it in terms of being similar. This is a really longer piece. We have directional lighting like this, but for the most part, they're backlit. This is just kind of a general type of shadow at the base of these objects right here. This one is directional because we have a really specific object like that, okay? But look at what this does too, in terms of a visual kind of anchor point object in here. It's like a stage, in other words, okay? We can put an object in here and you would really be creating kind of a dramatic setting for whatever you put in here, okay? And it could be a word stamp as well, okay? Anything that you want the viewer to look at, you can really direct their eye with the use of lighting. Let's throw in some foreground in here again. Okay. So does everyone kind of get that, in terms of the directional lighting like this? I mean, I don't, like I said, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. So usually when I'm doing shadows or something like that, if my object of light is like that, then I'm kind of going like this. I'm thinking about, creating lines coming from it, okay? I just do it in a very general way. I never have used that before, but I just wanted to show it, so you get the concept of it. If you have something like this in this type of scenario here, it's much more kind of loose and varied, not as, it's not formal, okay? I don't have so formal of or structured of an approach to this, okay? Oh, but what I was getting at here with the lighting again is, see, we have this, here's an area, this is my scene right here, okay? And we have these tree trunks going up like this, okay? You're looking at this thing going, are you sure you drew those images, Kevin? That sketch looks terrible, okay? All right, but here's the grass area down here, okay? So we have our moon like this, okay? And our lighting is coming this way, this way, this way. It's getting more angled like that. But basically what you have is this area of light like this, okay? And then it's darker underneath here and around, okay? And it's darker right here. But then here's an area of light like that, okay? Now we have light coming in here too. But for the most part, it's using that same structure. Here's light, dark, light. And this light area down here is like this, really, but it's just being broken up by the objects on it. If these tree trunks weren't here, then this whole area would be lit right down here. But you see this little thin kind of area of darkness like that. That's separating that area of light. So we have this type of scenario going on where it's this, dark, this, okay? Like that. It's like a snowman or an 8, we call it. You know, sometimes it's skewed, you know, or something like that. But that's the basic structure of it. And like I said, it can work in every one of your scenes. You know, just there. Sometimes there's just not one area of illumination. Maybe I break it up a little bit with another shadow going across it or something like that. You can if you want you can do these scenes like this too, and you can tint these like with kind of the spirit of a photo coloring. You know, people used to tint their black and white photos with photo tints, and they were typically really light shades of colors and whatnot. Yeah. I finally caught you live, 1:30 a.m. in Wales. Hello, Wendy. That's late. I was telling someone in the UK was saying, "Hey, can you jump on sometime at a time that's really good for them?" So I think they said, I asked them what time they want, and they said, well, noon. You know, I mean, I was asking them what would be the most ideal time. Oh, something. Where did my read stamp go? I lost it. It's the one I used right here. I'll use the small one. I always lose things, and it's like right in front of my face. Yeah, noon there is like 4 a.m. here, we figured. And I said, I can do that because I'm often up. It's, you know, so I'm up. It's not uncommon for me to be up at 4. When I'm usually up at 4 doing something, responding to an email, people think I just got up. But no, I haven't gone to sleep yet. Okay, so anyways, adding in my foreground like that. And I want my read stamp. Where did it go? Oh, here. Well, let's just branch right here. I need something a little bit more strong, a bolder foreground imagery on the base. I know this isn't about foreground, it's about lighting, but I have to finish off this scene. Okay, so a couple like bigger branches right in here. Thanks, Diana. Glad you like it. Okay. Oh, how about this? Let's do some birds flying right over that moon like that. Okay, and how about... Oh, let's see. Do I have an animal around here? I didn't grab a bunch of things to do on this video. I just wanted to get some of the basics down on that lighting, just because we get a lot of questions, you know, I get a lot of questions about that. Yeah, let's see. Oh, here's my read stamp right there. It was on the other side of my block. Oh, I just gave someone a link to this video on impression pressure, okay? And it was specifically for this read stamp. And again, I know this isn't on, this video is not on impression pressure, but since we're doing this, and since I just talked with someone about this, impression pressure, be careful when you're doing isolated types of areas on a stamp, especially if they're like a real fine point area. Okay, so what they thought was, they got this stamp like this, and areas down here, see these little isolated blades of grass, reeds, they're supported by more reeds around them, okay? So it's a denser area down here, okay? So this is what this looks like when you stamp it out, okay? The tops of the reeds are nice and crisp and whatnot, okay? But if you use too much pressure on those areas like that, I mean, I put an extreme amount of pressure right there, but you see how that gets like that? I mean, it's with anything. if you're doing some kind of isolated area, okay, so like on this bird right here, there's an isolated little area of the wing, okay, light even pressure like that. I didn't use enough ink on that, but okay, like that. But if you use too much pressure on that isolated area like that, you know, it just, you're squeezing that isolated, unsupported area line, and it's getting squished down because there's just so much pressure on it. So on something like these reeds right here, I'm using more of the pressure kind of at the base of this right here, okay? So when you stamp it out, you'll always get those nice, crisp impressions up there. Now don't go like this and, you know, just stamp out the bottom of it. You have to stamp it out nice and cleanly, but, you know, just watch out for that when you're using images that have those isolated areas like that. On this one right here, not so much, but, you know, there's the antlers up there. You know, I guess that could potentially get squished down. And I say that not because a lot of times when people are doing scenes too, they're using larger areas, okay, or larger stamps. So if I'm stamping out something like this to begin with, okay, and I'm finishing up with this, or something really small, then you don't want to use the same amount of pressure. You don't want to create kind of a muscle memory, okay? All right, now see I'm stamping out the bottom of these feet right here where the deer is standing in the grass as opposed to something a little bit more solid like hard-packed dirt or something like that, but I do have my grass textures down here. And let's put that little guy here, light even pressure, don't squish down the antlers like that too much, and then you have your little subject matter in here. Hello Beatrice, good to see you. Of course it looks easy. Easy techniques should look easy, they shouldn't look hard, as I always say. And I've spent all of my time in the designs to make it as easy as possible for people to use. But the biggest thing for me in teaching things like this, I'll tell you the difference between this type of stamping right here and people that are just getting into something, okay? They're coming from a lot of designs that are outlines, so, or there's word stamps or something like that. So I always say if I'm stamping out objects like this, if I'm stamping a star in a scene, in a card, and then I have a circle, if I want that circle to be behind that star, we have to mask it off, okay? So we don't get that circle going into each other like that. Well, this type of stamping, there was like hardly any masking. You want everything to merge in with one another because these scenes right here are tonal. They're not linear designs, okay? So just getting people to use partials too, they might stamp a tree or something like this, and if it's a more narrow type of area, like this one's a real kind of, I mean, I can get this whole stamp on here, but they're not used to using like a portion of a star or like a word stamp or something like that, or if it was a stamp of a person, you're not going to stamp them like from the waist down or something like that. But with trees and things like that, it's using partials, okay? And it's when they're coloring something like this, they're going for the full value of something. So, you know, they're doing a St. Patrick's Day star right here, something like this, okay? They're going for full saturations of it, right? And even, they want, you know, you hear a lot of talk about how they don't want to see kind of texture. They want things perfectly smooth. Gamma-sol with colored pencils, or, you know, someone buys alcohol pens or something like that. Oftentimes they'll ask, does it leave streaks or something like that? So they want like absolute zero texture. Okay, so something like this, it's using less of the designs, it's using partial designs, it's using it in repetition. Like with these stamps like this, you saw me use variations of black ink on this scene right here. There's no other, I didn't use any gray tones if you just kind of logged on. And it's getting people to use less of their media. So you can use I mean, people get it when they're using dry media like this. So, they get that if you're using a colored pencil like this, you're using it in various values of that. But sometimes when it comes to inks, people are thinking more in terms of full saturations of them. So you can really get a lot more mileage out of it by using less, okay? So these are all the gray tones from our black in here. And it's coloring specific objects less to create lighting or something like that. So it's really doing less of a lot of things, okay? You're using portions of stamps, so you're using less of a design. You're coloring less because what you retain in terms of the lighter areas of your card are the lit areas, right? And it's doing less things like careful placement and masking because you want all your images to merge in with one another. So it's really breaking people out of kind of a more really kind of regimented, careful application of things. And that's always kind of hard for me to do if they've been doing it for 10 years or 5 years, or that's just the way that they've been taught, which isn't the way we have to do it. When I'm using outline designs too, I'm doing a lot more masking or something like that. Let's see. Oh, Candy doesn't have unlimited internet. Thanks for joining in there. I do. I have to do a test page for pressure before I start any project with a new stamp set. Always. That's always a good idea to do, Jason. I always recommend stamp sketches. Anytime you get new stamps, is to get a really good feel for them. Stamp them out. Get a good idea in terms of these stamps right here. It's how they blend in with one another by stamping in repetition and with their sibling designs and whatnot. See how things look in perspective. And also, when you look at designs too, it's looking at them for different areas too. So you can have, some rocks like that of this design, or you can have just this little stream like that, or you can just stamp this out in its entirety. If you just needed a rock for something that's in water, you can also just stamp out that rock right there. So it's really getting a good idea of using things in portions too. You can really make use of your designs by kind of dissecting them. Now, if it's a word stamp, you're not going to use, I don't think I'm going to use the out of this quote or something like that, but, certainly for these different types of designs, you can use just certain portions of them for what you want. Here's a tree trunk trio here, but if you just need to use 2 of them out of that or 1 of them out of that, then you just color up the center one or this one here on the left or right. You have a felled tree, something like that, then you can stamp this at an angle like that. The latest Rubber Stamp Madness has someone using this tree trunk here. And what they do is they flip it up like this. Now, at the top of it, they had a canopy of trees like that, but they can extend this tree trunk out for a much larger type of trunk like that. I didn't make, a 10-inch design like that because it would just cost, the person so much to do. But these things like this can be blended in with one another. So especially if you have your scene end like right about here where it doesn't flare out so much, or you can just color this much more vertically without that flare at the bottom that would represent the bottom of the trunk. Okay. Let's say colored pencils don't work on glossy paper, just like pastels or chalks wouldn't work on glossy paper. If you have a soft enough glossy paper, or if you have a soft enough colored pencil here, I mean, you could get a little bit of an application, so these are Prismacolors, which are known for being, kind of some of the more softer styles of colored pencil, okay? You can certainly add a layer down with some of the softer colors, okay? I wouldn't go for something, one of the nice things about colored pencils, though, is that you can layer different colors on top of one another, okay? And that's where the tooth of the page comes in. But like these Prismas, you can get a layer down here. But the problem is with glossy types of papers, or just non-porous papers like a foil or something like that, if you try to add another layer on top of that previous layer, actually this is working. If you go for like 3, 4, 5 layers of colored pencil, okay, something like that, it might not apply. What you might end up doing is you're trying to apply that third or fourth layer on top of the previously applied wax, which is not absorbed into the paper at all because there's no grooves in it. What you might end up doing is you might end up kind of removing some of that, you know, those base layers like that. So, I mean, the ideal thing for colored pencils, let's say if you really want to add in some colored pencils, is maybe you add in some dye-based ink base layers of color, okay, and you establish those base layers with a dye-based ink. And then you go into it with, you know, more specific, like, in this case, I don't know, darker greens or whatever, I don't know, whatever color scheme that you happen to be working on, okay? Yeah, but one of the papers that I like to use for colored pencils, I mean, the best thing is a matte, but this one's like a satin paper right here. It has a little bit of a sheen to it. I don't know if you can see on this video right here, but this is just copy paper, of course, and it's going to be matte, you know. I mean, it's not a good one to use for us in crafting, but I'm just showing this as an example of matte to see the right here. I don't know if you can see this one right here. Has a little bit more sheen to it, so it's a little bit coated, but it's much more, you know, it's much more close to a matte than the glossy here, okay? So you get the best but I wouldn't say you get the best of both worlds in this, but you kind of get a fusion of the two strengths of glossy. Glossy gives you the best impression quality, you know, because you're making the most surface contact and you get the most amount of surface media retention, okay? It's not soaking into the page as much. But this one right here, it has a slight coating on it. So it's a little bit more porous, you know, that in it can accept things like, you know, a certain level of a number of layers of colored pencil or things like pastels. Then you're glossy, okay? Let's see. What do you use to mount your stamps, please? Oh, if it's the unmounted stamp, rubber only, okay? I have this material called Tack and Peel by Sukaneko, okay? And it's this kind of little thin, I don't know, how would you guys describe it? It's kind of almost like rubber, but it's tacky. And, you know, it gives you that temporary mount on there, okay? So it comes in a sheet like this. I buy 2 sheets of this, took care of, I don't know, a number of blocks. I do have one block that has the whole sheet on there, not this one right here. But for my largest stamps, this is a whole sheet of tack and peel like this, okay? So that's what it's called. I have videos on the channel in regards to things like that, and papers and media color choices. It's really for people that don't have any, say, dye-based inks at all, and they just want to, you know, start amassing kind of a more strategic approach to their initial selection of pads or whatnot. You know, like, you know, that's what I've been stamping a while. All of us have, like, you know, 5 different, you know, 6 brands of pads and everything like that. Now some of my stamps are cling foam mounted. This happens to be the cling foam version of this, and this is just on a plastic storage sheet right here that comes from the guy that makes my stamps that way. So anyways, hello in Australia. Good to see ya. What time is it in Australia right now? Is there more than one time zone in Australia, or is there just only one time zone? That's a pretty big country too. Let's see. Easy mount. Yeah, that's the cling foam mount right there. On Amazon. Is it like a jelly plate? It's not as thick as the jelly plate, Jason. It's much thinner than that. It's about the thickness of, I don't know what it would be. It's like I'm guessing it's like a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so this is what it looks like. If you guys ever get this stuff, just make sure that you apply the permanent side onto the acrylic block, okay? It'll be apparent to you when you get this, okay? But this is, I don't know if you can see this right here, kind of a, about how thin it is or whatnot, okay? Yeah, I don't know how, I don't know how, I can't think of something to compare it to. But I never used it before, but I went to a stamp retreat, and there was this guy, a couple of people had it, but I knew this one guy, Ken Pesha, that used to, use Stampscapes a lot. He used to teach classes in Arizona all over the place. And he brought out a block of his tack and peel covered acrylic block, and his was about this size, and it was black with ink, okay? So he used it a lot. And it was as tacky as he first got it, even though it was completely ink stained, okay? And he said it works for him just fine. He's been using it for, like, at that point in time, like 5-6 years or something like that. And, I trusted anything he said in terms of media and inks and all that type of stuff. So, but one thing, the jelly plate, yeah, it's a jelly plate in terms of it's tacky, though. I was thinking about in terms of the thickness, if that's what you were asking on that. But it's much thinner, but it has that, yeah, it has that cling type of material on there. So, see, this one right here is getting less tacky because it's all dust covered. And, when I place stamps down like this, they get dusty, and then I put it on here. And it all sticks to this. But what you do, which is on the instructions for, the tack and peel, is you just rinse it off in water. And I'm telling you that after some of these must be 10, 15 years old. I don't know which one of these is my oldest one, but when I rinse this off, you can feel it, when you're rinsing it off underwater, you can feel that dust or anything that was on there coming off. And then you just let it air dry. Don't dry it off with a paper towel, so it's going to get all linty again or whatnot. But it is almost as tacky as when it was brand new. In fact, this little plastic stuff like this, this one's really old, okay? And I cleaned this off, and I've even used it. It's actually kind of dusty, but you can kind of see how strong that tack and peel is. So sometimes when you wash it off, it's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to rip this, plastic coating. So save your plastic sheet that comes with that. And, that tack and peel will really take care of you for a really long time. It almost seems indestructible to me. One time I was getting mine, and it was really, really inky stained. And I took the green scouring side of a kitchen, sponge, and I really scoured off all my real hard ink stains on there, and they came right off, and it was tacky as brand new. So I don't know. It seems to me it's almost like indestructible at this point in time. But anyways, I know these live broadcasts are pretty fun. We get off on these other types of scenarios here, but I don't mind that. I love talking anything stamps. And hey, everyone, when we're talking about all these things too, there's a lot of things that I don't know. So chime in, on the whatever that message thing or board or whatever, the comments. Yeah, if there's there's a lot of things I don't know about the media and supplies that are out there. I'm oftentimes like the last one to find out about these types of things, especially over the last like 20 years, okay? So, I don't know. I'm just not up to date on a lot of things. I'm antiquated, in terms of my usage. Okay, let's go into one more kind of lighting scenario here. And I'll show you what you do. Okay, now don't see this as too different than if you're stamping out a path or a road or whatever, okay? This is kind of the visual lead-in type of scenario of lighting, okay? All right, so I'm going to show you what people do at first, okay? And then I'll show you what I do in terms of lighting something, okay? Let's do it. Let's do 2 choice of scenarios here. I'll use color on this one too, okay? All right, so let me do kind of identical. I didn't use enough pressure that first time on that one right there. I'll stand up. Impression pressure. There's a lot of surface area on this stamp right here. Okay. I'm using a stack of stuff underneath here, a stack of paper for extra cushioning too, okay? So, let's see. Let's go with those waterfalls like that, and let's see. Just what are some stamps that I have here? Let's just put a cloud down here. Let's just do a cloud in some blue tones right here. Okay, in the sky. Whoa, that is a really juicy blue here. Okay, remember that thing about kind of sky imagery? You can blot off the edge right here. If you just logged on, I was talking about kind of blotting off your sky imagery. This one's a hot sun right here around on the perimeter. Because when you do that, it stamps out lighter on that edge right there. So if that's the area that you're going to have to blend in with the surrounding, then just don't stamp it out so dark to begin with, and it gives you a really good head start for blending everything in, because you don't have to blend it in to begin with because it is already kind of lighter on the design right here. This is something that I really teach in my Stampscapes 1 live workshop tomorrow. It'll be the first live workshop that I've taught in a long time, albeit a virtual one. Here like that, but see that right there? So there's my light source, right? It's this little area in the sky like that, okay? And let me show you what I'm talking about too, okay? All right, so if I stamp this out and I don't blot off that edge, when I stamp this out, it's going to have that much harder edge like that, okay? Now that's fine if you're just building up some, you know, clouds like this and you're building it all up. But let's say those clouds are going to end somewhere. If this is going to be open blue sky up there, then why not do this? Okay. Blot that off, and I'm wiping it off pretty good. Wipe off more ink than you think you should, okay? But don't do it with a wet paper towel, otherwise it's going to remove all the ink, okay? But see how that really transitions off like that really nicely? Okay, wiping it off. I'm wiping off, I don't know, it's like a ½ an inch into there. I don't know what that is in millimeters. For everyone not, you know, for Australia and Wales. Okay, but you see that right there? See how that kind of just transitions off like that? So again, this is that idea when I was talking about, you know, about using partials of the stamp. You don't use certain portions. Well, this is kind of, you're using all of the cloud, but you're just not stamping in that area in there. That area in there is there to define the edge of that cloud. But again, you don't have to stamp the whole thing, okay? You go for another impression out here like that, and that if you want to. You know, so you get varying degrees. So here's dark blue. Oh, well, the full impression of blue. And right on the edge like that, you're using a drier version, so you're getting, you know, you're getting a lot more mileage out of your ink right there, okay? And that's one of the things, you know, that's I'm always kind of preaching, you know, you can get more mileage out of your existing stamps and inks when you use just drier versions of them or different versions of them. Oops, sorry about that, Beatrice. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Wow. Well, we're going to have to go over that all over again. No. Okay, sorry about that. All right. Anyways, see that? I need like someone reading the comments to me out loud. The worst thing is when I do a video and I'm doing, I don't know, I go on for like, I don't know, 20 minutes zoomed in when I was trying to show, you know, demonstrating like a white paint pen or something like that in the videos. And I recognized that later. It's like, okay, this one's going to be a voiceover edited version. I have to cut all, you know, that whole thing out. I get lost in my scenes. You know, after all these years, I still get kind of full immersion into whatever I'm, you know, kind of doing. One of the things about scenic stamping, right? You know, you can kind of, you enter the scene in some ways, I think in a kind of a subconscious way like that. Okay, so here's two scenarios right here, okay? So I'll show you kind of a non-lighting kind of considered piece and just thinking about sheer color, okay? And let's see, did anyone say heat gun to dry your tack and peel fast? You use a heat gun to dry off your tack and peel, huh, Jeannie? Yeah, I guess so. Don't put the heat too close to it, otherwise it might ripple. Shoot it from distance. I don't know. The tack and peel for me really air dries really fast if I just kind of, you know, I just put it on there and I stick it like that. Jeannie's in, you know, rainy Washington though. There's so many different considerations with location, with like Arizona for ink drying time, which would be kind of the opposite from Seattle here in the US, and temperature. Some people in Canada were, you know, it was taking forever for their inks to dry because the relative humidity was so high, I'm guessing. Okay, so we have these two scenarios, right? I'll add in some foregrounds and things like that later, but let's just approach this in terms of lighting. I do need a moderator. I can't moderate myself really well, which is true. That's not a joke. Okay, so all right. So here's the thing that people run into. Okay, let's see, where am I with the view here? All right. When people come into scenic stamping first, this is what I see, okay? And I totally know where they're coming from too, okay? And it's because, again, they have developed some really good habits and processes via the more outline styles of designs, okay? So, I'm wondering what the delay is, with the video here is. I'm watching my video live, but then I also see my live tiny box right here. Okay, so let's approach this right here. Okay, so this is what I'm getting at right here, okay? Here's a waterfall. Here's your water down here, okay? And here's these rocks, okay? And then the water's coming through here. We have some sky up there and whatnot, okay? So what they're thinking about from a coloring perspective is going into the scene, okay? Be it whatever. It could be, like I said, pastels, colored pencil, chalks, all that type of thing, okay? And they're thinking about, okay, water is blue, okay? Or something like that. And they're coming into it like this. I'll just do this really fast here. Okay. And going up into here, like so. I'll do this first color real fast so I can just go through this, okay? Okay, so that whole water area, including the falls, are colored in, all right? Let's move it to the let's move to the Bahama blue so you can see it much more prominently here, okay? So, moving in with the blue like this, okay? So all water is uniform, okay? Like that. It's going to make me cringe doing this right here, but here we go up into the waterfalls area like this, okay? So there's a pretty evenly applied area of blue, right? In that waterfall, all the water areas within this piece like this, okay? And so blue sky or something like that. So they're thinking about, okay, I'm going to go into my sky here and let's add in some blue sky or whatnot. So let's do that. Okay. So let's go back in with the lightest color again. And let's see. The summer sky color from Memento is so light, it's hard to see. Okay, so we're going up here like this. Okay. Did I? Let's see here. I'm not seeing on my computer. Are you guys still seeing the on my computer the video froze or something like that? Okay, so that is a full area fill in of that color, okay? So there's sky like that. Okay, so there's no lighting in here, all right? But now let's go into the rocks or something like that with maybe a gray or something like that. Okay, so let's just move to black here. Or let's see if I have a gray. Here is Memento here. I lost my live feed on my own computer, so I can see myself live, but I can't see the delayed version watching it on YouTube. Okay, all right. Okay, so here's the gray, okay? So they're thinking about coloring in the rocks. Okay, so we have gray rocks or something like that, you know, granite rocks or something like that, okay? So that is kind of full area coloring as if these areas are just, you know, kind of more geometrically kind of divided areas, okay? Now, I mean, you could do something like this. It looks more like there's minimal lighting in this scenario here, right? And it's because everything has been uniformly applied, okay? So let's just do, you know, so let's contrast that with coloring for lighting, okay? So this is like I said, as if the rocks are just, you know, more of an outline type of rock like this, okay? So there's rocks like this, and there's no kind of value changes in at all. So they're just approaching it, you know, just color the whole thing like that. Okay, now I can still do something with this, really to push that value scheme over. Okay, so let's use the same colors again. And let's just, okay, I have that gray applicator in my hand here still. Are we still zoomed out enough here? Okay. All right, so here, oops, this is the blue. Okay, we're gonna have blue, gray rocks, okay? All right, here's the gray. I have too many open pads here. This is good thing that you have, yeah, summer sky and, okay, Bahama blue right here. Okay, so let's go with the gray here, okay? So, okay, let's see. So see on the image right here, instead of being outlines, these are tonal objects, okay? So they're typically darker on the base, and then as you move up towards the top of the rock, they get lighter, okay? Now, like I said, you don't have to get so formalized like saying, like, oh my gosh, I applied some of that tone in the lightest of area. It's not like that. But just in general, what you do is you vary those rocks a little bit. So like something like this, down in there. I have a lot of blue in here, so going like that. Okay. So you have some areas of the rocks that are lighter than others. You can do this with a pen too, or whatever. You know, if this was a gray pen, you know, I'm applying more of it at the base of it. It's a very light gray, okay? See, like this? I'm applying it into the shadow areas, okay, of the design. So I'm reiterating just what's on the design itself. I'll put that right there. Can we see that? Okay. All right, so we're going like that. And like I said, you know, if you color a rock out completely, that's fine. You know, that's just lighting variation there. But just in general, that is just kind of a starting point of, of what you can consider when toning in your scene. You can just look at the design. Darker areas you make darker, lighter areas you retain, just in general a little bit more of the light. Okay, let's go in with the summer sky. Let's do this really quickly here. Okay, now here's where I'm going into my water, right? Water's blue, whatever, during certain times of day. Water is not typically too blue usually if it's like a sunset scenario or something like that. But let's do that thing where we're doing in this case, it's lighting up here and it'll be lighting down here, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm retaining some of this area, but I don't want a big area of just light like that and just toned around there like this, okay? I like water to have those striations in it. So here we have it right here, and it's almost there, okay? This was a really easy lighting scenario right here. So see that, where you've just retained some of that area of light. So suddenly you have that light, dark, light area. But here's what I do too. Hit waterfalls, roads, paths, anything like that. I usually have some areas that are lit, and paths of water I approach as the same thing here with like a path and through a meadow or a road or something like that. I leave those areas a little bit lighter. It doesn't mean that you leave it the white of the card, I'm coming into here with blue, but I will generally leave that a little bit more lit, okay, just by not toning it out. And that, to me, is a little bit more kind of rich and varied than toning the whole thing out like this, okay? But if you get this, I'll show you what to do about something like this, though, okay? Okay, so let's see. Go like this. Let's go to the Bahama blue. You'll be able to see much more distinctly that lighting scenario here, okay? Okay, now here's what you do. Here's where, when people are first kind of experiencing this type of color application, they're usually absolutely fine with those first colors, okay? That base layer color, because it is so light. But it's with the medium to darker tones, you have to kind of be careful that you don't lose all your light. Now, sometimes people go in here and then with the second color, it's like I've toned everything out, okay? So it's hard for them to kind of put the brakes on their application too of color with the darker tones. That's why I said it's always kind of a good exercise to do those monochromatic ones, because you really have to control the amount of ink that you apply to retain those kind of more lighter gray, grayscale variations, okay? All right, so, oops, I forgot to do this in the sky here. Let's do it in the sky here like this, okay? I'm just going straight in with a Bahama. Okay, I'm not going to go back to that summer sky, but usually I would do this through the lighter tones. You don't have to. Okay, but see this right here? This is a full type of application of color in this whole area right here. This is a less a lesser application? I don't know. It's a lighter application. It's a more limited application, I should say. Okay, but look how much more complex that now suddenly looks than this one right here, right? And it's not because this they find easier to do in terms of filling in the whole thing, but this one is less to do, but it looks so much more complex than this. But in reality, this was like doing a lot less work. It's just putting on the brakes. And you see these areas, look on these rocks right here. Look at the water capturing some of that light. But look at this rock right here. I promise I'll remember to zoom out right here. But see this rock right here? Look how much more character that has because it is lit like that. So let's make this a little bit more extreme, okay? And move into... Let's go into the Danube Blue. Yeah, this Danube Blue looks a lot darker, but it really isn't. But let's move into this, okay? And like I said, I mean, you can do this. This rock could be, you know, a red rock in Arizona or something like that. Just move through maybe some tans and oranges and reds or something like that. Brick red, you know, if that real red rock looking type of thing. Okay, so you would just move it through those different tones, but again, retain some of those lighter areas instead of it being white. Maybe it's tan or something like that. And then you can have the blue down here. Especially, it's like a Havasupai Falls or something like Havasu Falls, you know, where it's that aqua green blue type of water against those red rocks. It's so dramatic looking. Okay, so see this right here? See how I'm just kind of reiterating those shadows down there. See how dark it is down here? Well, that's what I'm doing with a darker tone. I'm just adding it in those areas. You don't have to kind of make up, totally invent everything. You just go off of the designs and make those kind of the foundation for your lighting choices, okay? Okay, so we're going up here like that. Okay, now let's take a look at this one right here. All right. Now, what are we missing right here? We're missing a range of values, right? Because everything got uniformly applied. But this isn't a lost cause, you know, so whenever I see this, people say, hey, Kevin, there's something with this piece. They usually say something like that, you know, where they're not sure of kind of what's missing here. And I think it's a little bit more of a value range, okay? So you can't make this area lighter, you know, by going with the summer sky over the top of a darker ink, right? Because these are transparent inks, so the darkest color is always going to be more prominent. So what you do is there's a lot of contrast in this one. So what do you do with this one? You just have to use more contrast on it. So let's move it through some darker tones. Let's see if we can get any darker using the Danube Blue. That's Danube Blue, right? Okay, yeah, okay. So again, so I'm just going to be applying those principles from here on. It doesn't have to be from white to, you know, the darkest tone. It could be from a much more muted version. It's more akin to like a foggy day or something like that. Or, you know, a later time, you know, maybe it's twilight or something like that, or maybe really early morning where there's just, you know, barely a glow coming into the, you know, situation, scenario. Okay. So, see this right here? So just going darker, now suddenly this area seems what? By contrast, it seems one step lighter. So we can get that scenario of light and reflected light down here, but it's just in a much more muted range of values, okay? So it's going from something that's already kind of a, I don't know, what is that? Like a 20% blue or something like that, to, I don't know, whatever we take this to. We can go 80%, or if we go all the way to black on the perimeter like that, we can go to 100 instead of 0 to whatever, okay? I hope that makes sense. You know, when I'm talking about percentages, I'm talking about like the grayscale, you know, with, you know, white being 0 and absolute black being 100, okay? Well, there's the same ranges within each color, you know, so a light blue like this would be, I don't know, whatever that is. It's like a 7% blue, or I don't know, something like that. It's, you know, those really super light blues. Okay, so anyways, this is just going with one color, but just one color alone, and it's not even that much, it's not a huge jump in value from that previous color, but we can start to see our lighting scheme kind of revealing itself like that. Okay, so I need to go much darker with that to really bring this out. So believe it or not, I mean, depending on how dark I make this, I can make those areas right in here, which were dark by contrast, we can make those areas still seem really light by contrast by just doing this. Okay, so let's, and this is a Caribbean blue right here. It's not super dark or anything like that. It's kind of a medium, but it's a little bit richer of a tone. Let's just go in here. I'm not making these rocks just gray anymore. I want to get through this one really fast so you can see kind of the things that we can do. And I'm doing this all the time with my pieces. I'm playing contrasts against one another, okay? So if you make some areas too dark, then what can you do? Well, you can light it up a little bit with, some Brilliance ink or white pigment ink, or you just put something next to it that's much darker than that, and by contrast, the thing that is, or area that's next to it will seem one step lighter, okay? All right, so see that? It's starting to come about. We have that area of light down here. Look at those waterfalls too. Those are not, they're colored, but they're starting to stand out a little bit more, and that kind of draws the viewer's eye right up into there, okay? All right, now let's go pretty dark here with, that's my Prussian blue, okay? Remember, like I said, when you get into some of those darker tones, really put on the brakes. This one's a pretty dark blue right here, okay? So you see this right here? I want to make sure that I don't come into this area, so I'm really hanging out on the perimeter a lot more with this. Plus, I just re-inked this pad. I found my re-inker for it recently, so it's pretty juicy, okay? See this right here? Putting it right next to my waterfalls, but retaining that falling water area. Okay. And again, going with that kind of vignette, the four corners like this. Okay, like that. It's looking a lot lighter though, isn't it? It's actually kind of looking a little bit more, I don't know, it's almost looking cheery and sunny, whereas before it looked kind of muted and kind of somber looking, without all that contrast in there. Okay, so let's go like that. And let's go to black here, okay. Really watch it with your black inks, okay. You don't want to get like black in here or something like that. So you really stay perimeter oriented like that. This paper is getting really super saturated with ink here. Yeah. So it doesn't apply as fast. I can see if I go like that, it's pretty, it's really dark. So. Okay, look how light that looks now. Wow, with that black there. Let's see, I'm zoomed out enough, right? Okay, yeah. So see, this is one of those things. When I see people's scenes, sometimes people think that they went off the rails, with the current scene that they did. Okay, and it's because a lot of time, I would say about maybe 85% of the pieces that I see look absolutely fine to me, but it's just the contrast that they can work on more. So this piece, it doesn't look good with those first couple colors on there, okay, because I just toned everything out. But I don't know. All you need to do is just add more color. So what I do is people can add more color and contrast to make something richer, to have more contrast. They can add in other things are like from a textural standpoint, but I never look at a scene where maybe there's, 1% of the scenes that I think where it's like they dropped a stamp like in the middle of it or something like that. But even that, you can cover it up with like a tree or something like that. Or a branch, but I don't know. It's usually a matter of applying more ink, okay? Creating depth with additional imagery, textures with, I don't know, a paint pen or something like that. Now this is really getting coming around now. Look how light that looks now. when you're looking at this one, it almost looks as light as my other one. But if, I put it up, in contrast, it's not. So here's this other one right here with much more profound lighting, okay? But here, let me add in a little bit more tone. I wasn't done with this one. I was just, stopping there just so we can show what we can do still with other pieces like this. But look at the shadow right now at the base of these rocks right here. Okay. Look how that really anchored down that waterfall, just like adding in, remember that dark tone at the base of these trees right here, how that anchored down these trees into the meadow or whatever, not the meadow, but I don't know, the forest floor. But look how that dark base there really anchors down these rocks into the scene too, like that, okay? So anchor that down a little bit more. Okay, something like that. All right. So, let's see, how do you sign up for your work? The workshops are on the workshop page of Stampscapes.com. Okay. I need to add in additional dates. I'll be doing that probably this weekend sometime after my classes. I need to kind of fine tune everything and see if I need to tweak anything with the workshops. But there's 5 classes on there, and the first 2 ones I'm teaching tomorrow. And I'll be teaching Stampscapes 1 and 2 repeatedly, I don't know, based on, kind of interest and whatnot. Yeah, it did really change the whole spirit, especially this one, didn't it, Darlene? And Michelle, yeah, this whole style of coloring like that. Do you see what you can do? I mean, just about whatever you're going to do with those first base colors like that. So even if there's kind of a missed opportunity in certain types of lighting scenarios by coloring everything out in this case and not retaining some areas of white, which you don't have to do. You don't have to retain areas of white on the page like that. But I don't know. I think this one there's a lot of mood on this one right here. And I don't know. There's, a certain degree of, whatever soul to this one like that. Sometimes, I think I need to not retain so much white on all of my scenes that I do, because sometimes I see some people's scenes and they're kind of more, kind of atmospheric when there's a lack of, kind of the lightest types of situations within a scene. Okay, so let's just do a little foreground on this, and we will see what it looks like or what it creates here in terms of contrast. So what I was talking about before was if you create an area in here, let's say this water down here, I was saying, okay, I wish I would have kept that a little bit lighter or something like that. If you put something darker right next to it, or in front of it in this case, like these trees, by contrast, you can create a lighter looking area, okay? Like that, right there, by having these branches kind of go in there. Let's do this right here. Let's put this smaller one in the distance. Here's your mask right here. I joke, I think I was mentioning this in a previous live broadcast that I remember when I was showing people kind of just masking off with paper towels. I remember someone saying, hey, they're waving at their friend across the room because it was at a store demonstration. She goes, look at this. She goes, I'm never using a mask again, or cutting out a mask again. All right, so there's some dead trees out there in the distance like that. I don't know, maybe we need to spring this up. I can put little blossoms on those trees, or little green kind of leaves or something like that. I'll finish this one off later on, but again, okay, so see what I did right here? I added this, these trees right here, because if you add that darker element next to this area that was, you know, in other words, I could have left it much lighter. It doesn't have to be white like this one right here, but when you do that like that, this area in here, this is a lot darker right here, so by contrast, that seems lighter, okay? So you're just, again, you're just playing contrasts against one another. Okay, so, let's see. Oh, let's just, here, I've been using this as kind of an overhanging tree limb here. The stamps of nature, you can use them for whatever type of scenario you want. Here's some, this is like a bush down here instead of like an overhanging tree limb, right? Okay, I usually do it on both sides just to kind of frame things off. That one's stamped out lighter, but it looks like it's just kind of farther back in the foreground like that. So there's your scenario right there. But look at that little stage area. If you wanted to put little, I don't know, fish jumping out of there, or a fisherman or something like that, or a word stamp like this could be down there, you know, and that would really kind of bring out that area in terms of a visual, whatever, focal point, you can say. We can put some objects below the surface of the water. Let's do this right here too. Here's the blues, a couple of the blues that we used on here, right? Let's make this water seem a little bit more clear and transparent in terms of a surface. So I'm stamping out these little pebbles down here. I'll start doing them in the lighter area, or the darker area, and then I'll move into that lighter area like this. I'm gonna have to zoom in. If I don't zoom out, someone scream at me. Okay, but see this right here? I'm putting those rocks, they're represented, you know, they're just supposed to be kind of shadows under the surface there, okay? So that's that color. But now, on this one right here, it's much lighter, right? So let's maybe blot that out a couple times before we go into those really light areas, okay? See this right here? With its full saturation, I can put this into the darker areas, okay? Because it's darker to begin with. But then when you go with the lighter impressions out here, so you know what I was talking about in terms of really making use of your inks, in terms of your color applications, okay? But you're really making use of your inks too in terms of the dry aspect of it. Remember with the cloud, wiping off some of that ink so that you get varied impressions, okay? It could be an eagle's wing or something like that. You can wipe off some of that ink, you know, don't wipe it off totally, but you can dab off some of the ink so one of the wings is lighter than the rest of the body, and it looks like the light is hitting that wing. So you don't have to do anything post impressions, you know. You stamp it out, it's already inherently in the impressions. And that, again, that takes a lot of, you know, takes out additional work that you're going to have to do, but it's by doing it less, you know, so you're stamping out less of an impression, okay? You're using less ink, okay? Less ink on these rocks right here creates lighting, okay? All right, so here's these little textures down here, okay? So I just added the darker version in here, but again, I was using different impression. Let's see, here we go, right here. Is that too glary? Let's see if am I zoomed in all the way? Okay, I'm zoomed in all the way as I can go, but I hope you can see kind of the variations of blue down in this water down here. So it just adds another little added layer of, I guess you can call it lighting too, because there's darker impressions of these pebbles, you know, on the darker areas, and then there's lighter ones in there. So that in turn is kind of creating this lighting situation right here, lighting scenario. Okay, so anyways, that is that on lighting. If you just joined in, you can always watch the replay if you want to. But one of the things that we did earlier on this video was I was showing people kind of some basics on lighting scenarios here with these two scenes here. Okay. All right. This one is just kind of more of a backlit general type of lighting scenario here, where it's just kind of just this overall illumination in back of the trees. Okay. And on this one right here, we've created this light source in the form of this moon right here, really casting these hard shadows down here. So I was showing them at the base of these trees right here, where the tree hits the surface of this forest floor area right here. What we did was going from the center of that moon like that. You see where this kind of shadow direction is being created like that? See that right there? This one right here goes like that. And this shadow right here, albeit a really small little part of that tree, is kind of like that. This one right here, it gets much more vertical like this because it is closer to that light source, so that shadow kind of comes down this way a little bit more. Okay, but like I said, when I do this, I don't have like a ruler or something like that. I just did that just for the sake of kind of illustrating the point as far as kind of the angles that you might use in these you know, scenarios like this. If it's, you know, rocks or something like that, you know, we can't put a ruler down, you know, on this rock right here being cast on these, because these are rounded objects. Okay, so you just kind of, you know, follow the general kind of illumination shadow scenario that's on these designs like that, and you'll be set as far as kind of choices, possible choices on where you can add your additional shadows in there. But again, it's not a hard set formula or anything like this. Everything is just kind of a very basic, you know, type of scenario, just for the ease of, you know, choosing what you want to do right here. So, and again, like I said, you can always go darker, you know, unless you're on black and you've just blackened out everything or something like that. But I don't know, you can always create more contrast to create, you know, that lighting within your scene that you're going for. If you were going for something as hard as this one, I guess you can add in some white in here or something like that, but I would just, instead of doing that, I would just go darker to bring out those illuminated areas that you want to emphasize. Okay, so anyways, that is that on that lesson right there. If you have any questions, post it really quickly right here. But otherwise, I've done a lot of these types of videos before. There are lessons on, let me see, it's called Easy Lighting. So if you type into the search window on YouTube, if you just type in Stampscapes and Easy Lighting, you'll get down, you know, you'll get to some other lessons on just, you know, these different scenarios that I'm talking about right here in terms of your lighting structure. And usually it's a matter of two areas of light. Light source, or an area of light. You don't have like a moon or something like that. This is my light source in here. And reflected light, just somewhat divided up by an area that's a little bit darker, or it could just be some dark trees in the background that's separating, you know, those two areas of light. And right here, it's just this little bit of tone right here, separating the forest floor from that light source. And this stars right here, it's not white light, but it's just kind of a lighter area separated by this little area of darker light right here. And in this case, I have the little area in here that's somewhat, it's not profoundly illuminated because it's darker to begin with, but I went darker on this perimeter area just to emphasize this kind of passage of water and light to get in there. This would be a good one to stamp in some sort of quote stamp up here, or you can stamp up, oh, let me see. Here, let's just use this one little stamp again here. I'll just stamp my deer. This deer gets around. I guess it has a wide territory. Okay, let's see. my block isn't big enough for this stamp right here, but I was thinking about not stamping out the feet too much. Well, let's go like this. Okay, so this isn't like a big river or something like that. It's like a little tiny stream, okay? Because I'm stamping this, our little character in the distance, but it's still fairly large. Okay, so let's go like this right here. So this is stamping out something that's going to be pretty dark next to that area that's lighter than that. So look how light now that area in the back of that deer looks just by the very fact that we've stamped that deer in that location. So, all right. So anyways, I'm not going to go into, you know, little highlights or anything like that. We'll leave that for another video sometime. I mean, you can see, you know, those types of examples all over on, I don't know, at this point in time, over 1,000 videos that I've uploaded. But I don't know, there's various examples of all of that. But I don't know, maybe we can finish this off on another live thing, and I can add in some little details or something like that, or we can do something like colorize some of these scenes like that, and white pigment ink. Those are all the types of things that I really enjoy doing to kind of enhance these pieces and make them seem a little bit more kind of kinesthetic and full in terms of the textural range of these scenes, but we'll just strictly keep this to the value range in terms of light and dark in here. So anyways, I hope this video came in handy or comes in handy for you guys in terms of lighting. You know, we can go on, I can do lighting different types of scenarios, you know, for days or something like that, but this is just the general basic structure that I do. 2 areas of light, light, dark, light. Now, like I said, sometimes I separate it, you know, with a few streaks here and there just because I don't want just this big area of light, you know, like that. But that's what's going on in here. Light in the background, dark, light, light, dark, light, you know. And it's, I don't know, it's just it's a really easy approach in terms of card making. It keeps things really simple like that. So anyways, thanks again for watching and hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on another video. Thanks from wherever you joined in. If it's super early or super late for you, thanks for staying up with us as well here in the States. Let's see. It could be on Eastern Standard Time. It could be 9:45, so getting a little bit late. But I don't know. Maybe you're all stampers and whatnot, and night owls like me anyway. So yeah, thanks for joining in. And we'll see you on the next video. Signing out here.